All right, for today's video review, we're going to be taking a look at Transformers Generations Legacy Laser Optimus Prime. Yeah, this is our first real look into the leader class of the Legacy line, just because the other leader class in Wave 1 is just a redeco of Kingdom Galvatron. So this is really our first new, like completely new leader class figure. Although, and I'll get into this later, he does share some parts with Earthrise Optimus Prime, but either way, for the most part, he's a pretty new figure, and yeah, he's pretty much a new iteration here of our G2 Laser Optimus Prime aesthetic with the long sort of tanker trailer and the long nose cab, and then the flame detail on the front there. He looks really nice in his truck mode with or without the trailer. He does also, like, aside from sharing some parts, he is also similar to Earthrise Optimus Prime, and that's going to be the general comparison here because he's another one of those leader class figures that's really just a Voyager class figure with like extra stuff to make him a leader class figure, and a lot more similar to Prime, obviously, because the extra stuff he has is a trailer. And right off the bat, I do have to say that, like, when comparing this to Earthrise Prime, both the actual cab robot mode seems like it has more plastic, and also the trailer seems like it has more plastic. So it does seem like you are getting a bit more bang for your buck than we did with Earthrise Prime. Granted, prices have gone up a little bit since then, and also, Earthrise Prime is a great figure. I'm not meaning to disparage that, but just like the trailer here, like if you actually just like tap on the side of it, it feels a lot more solid than Earthrise Prime's trailer. Now, I'm not sure if that's because it actually is thicker plastic, or if it's a different kind of plastic, or if it's just because the shape of the whole tanker trailer is just like structurally, a lot more solid than the just like box halves that Earthrise Prime's trailer was. But either way, I do really like the tanker trailer. It does have a little stand down here that you can flip up so it can sit by itself when you've got Prime doing other stuff. And here's Prime in his vanilla, I guess, truck mode without the trailer. And yeah, he looks pretty nice. Rolls nicely with or without the trailer. Again, like if you look at the back section here, they've reshelled it a little bit, but a lot of the legs down is pretty much the same as Earthrise Prime. Like the feet and the thighs and the little tank bits here are completely the same parts, and then some of the stuff in here is mostly just following the same theme, even if it is like remolded parts. The wheels are different. I mean, I'll get into this more when when I show them off with Earthrise Prime, but yeah, no, it's a pretty nice truck mode, and I think it works well. He comes with a couple Energon weapons here. He comes with a nice Energon sword and a little Energon axe here. In terms of storage, you've got a few options. If you just want to store them on the cab without the trailer, on the bottom here, there's a couple little slots down here that correspond to a couple tabs on the hilt of the sword here. So you can just plug it in like that, and it stores nice, neat underneath. You can't see it at all. I mean, unless you're like looking through the gap on the top there, but hey, it actually helps fill that gap a little bit. But that's really good weapon storage. I love that. And then for the axe here, it's actually on a little bit of a hinge, so you can fold the handle up like that. And then it's got two tabs right here that correspond to two slots right back there. So you can peg it onto this back here. And, it is visible from the outside, but it's a little bit less egregious than like having a gun stuck onto the top of the vehicle mode, because at least it kind of, it's just like a flat section sitting on the back of his bed. So I think that works relatively well. Now, granted, if you do have the axe plugged in there, then the trailer definitely cannot plug in at all. But if you want to have everything stored with the trailer, you do have another option. You can do either or, like the sword could stay down there no matter what. But if you open up the trailer here, and I'll get into this more in a little bit, but on both sides here, it's got two connections. It's got this little slot here and then these two slots here. And it's got those on both sides, so you can put either the axe or the sword on either side. But for the axe here, you just want to take the two little tabs and put them into that weird slot there. And obviously, you can only put one on one side, but you can put either on either side is what I meant there. And then the sword just goes into those two slots using the same tabs that it did for storing underneath the truck. Just like that. And then you can obviously close it back up, and it all stores entirely within the trailer. Nice and neat, no problems. So that's really nice. I like that weapon storage a lot. To get into comparisons here, we can obviously, we'll put the trailer back on. Here you can, just for the standard one, bring on Kingdom Sideswipe like we usually do. And, that works okay. As usual, I feel like the truck is a little bit small compared to Sideswipe. Like, I think that the Earthrise and Kingdom cars are a little bit too big for some of the trucks in the line. Whereas if you bring on one of the characters that uses the Cliff Jumper mold, like that definitely works a lot better. Like I feel like that works, whereas the car looks a little bit too big with Sideswipe. So there's some fudging there, but I think either way, both of them look good with him no matter what. It's just, it looks a little bit better with some of the smaller cars. And then for the big comparison, here he is with Earthrise Prime and his trailer. And that works pretty well. If we take off the trailers here for a sec and actually compare the cabs themselves, and again, like a lot of the leg sections are the same. So if you line them up here, they do pretty much match up window to window. But then this is what I'm talking about with this one potentially having more plastic, is he also has like the full, front end there. So it's like they're pretty much the same length, and then you add that onto it. So seems bigger overall. I mean, it might be the case that some of the plastic is thinner in sections, but either way, I think that they look good together. That kind of matches up nicely for the scale between those two vehicles. And then looking at the trailers here, like I said, like if you have the Earthrise Prime trailer, like it's a little bit more wibbly, but again, that might just be because of like the structural shape of it. Like these are just, like rectangular parts, whereas this is more like, has like an inner structure. So you can't really wiggle it around as much, so it feels more solid. It might not actually be that there's like actually more plastic, but it definitely feels like it holds its shape a little bit better, which I appreciate. But yeah, to get onto transformation here, I guess first things first, let's just show off the trailer and move him out of the way for now, because the trailer does do a little, have a little base mode, like a lot of trailers do in Transformers. So first thing you want to do is take this cap section here at the end and just untab it. It tabs into both sides, so you need to do that before you can actually open it. And then take the two halves, just open them out to the side. Take this little panel here and fold it down. I find that mine doesn't really sit flat on the ground. Like it always wants to pop up just a little bit. It still looks more or less okay, but it is kind of annoying that that doesn't actually sit flat. And then you take this big arm section here, and you want to bend it down, and then also take this cap section, rotate it around. It's just on a ball joint there, and then double hinge it down like that so it collapses in like that. Take this one of the little circles on the top here and just fold it up like that to become guns, and then take the little stand, fold it up a little bit like that, and then unfold this section, and it's got a little claw arm. And yeah, there you've got his little trailer base mode, which I think is really cool. It obviously doesn't have like features like the original G2 Prime trailer did, but it still manages to capture the overall aesthetic, which I appreciate. And then moving on to Prime himself here. Again, it's got some similarities to Earthrise Prime, but really only in the legs. The rest of it is pretty much completely different. First thing you want to do is, like Earthrise Prime, just fold in the little oil drums here, or whatever those are for on trucks. I'm not a truck person. And then you want to take these panels with the little step sections on here and just untap those and fold them up like that. It's important that you do this because there's a tiny little slot here that goes onto a tiny little tab, so you don't want to forget to unfold those because you might break something. But yeah, bring it out like that, and then bring down the legs here, and it still has the carryover all the way from Siege with these kneecap panels, which on the Siege version were reversed the other way. So this port ended up actually being the trailer hitch, but then on the Earthrise version got switched around and given a new hitch. So now it just kind of has an inexplicable extra thing on the outside here, and it still has that all the way. That carried over from Siege, which is funny. But you just fold these panels down, untap the legs, and then the feet are exactly the same. Just fold out the heel and fold out the toe, and there you have his legs. And then you want to take these sections here, which are going to be the forearms, and just unfold them a little bit for now, just so you have the clearance to bring this section over and then rotate the waist while you're doing this. We'll stand him up now and adjust the camera a bit because he's going to get taller. Then what you want to do is take the whole window section here and fold the arms back just a little bit to give clearance, and it's on a hinge, and you just fold it back like that. And there are 2 tabs in here that were tabbed into these 2 slots right here. So now that that's open, it allows you to take the entire nose section here. You want to flip up these panels just to kind of get them out of the way, and then double hinge them down so they sit just like that for now. We'll collapse them a bit more later, but just to get them out of the way, that's where they go. And then for the arm sections here, well, first we want to take the whole front section here and just rotate that out a little bit. You have to like rotate it around like this, and then take the grill section here and unfold that and tab it into the chest piece. And you have to do that first so that you have the clearance for the arms to be able to swing out, because these 2 little, it's kind of hard to see, these little panels right here would have bumped up against the window section there, or chest section. They're not really as windows. I'll talk about it. But then you want to fold the arms out to the side just like this for now, just so that they're kind of out of the way. You can take the head from the back here, fold that up and click it into place. Then once everything is like that, you want to bend this back just a little bit so you can take these 2 sections, rotate them up, and then they have a tab right here that will peg into this back section just like that. And then take his chest and bring that down and tab them into those panels. Make sure the head stays clipped in. Then you want to take the arms, click them into place like this. They're kind of like offset here at the bicep, so you just want to rotate them around to make that flush. And then for the forearms, you just take this panel here, unfold it like that. The hand is kind of inside there. It can be a little tricky to get out sometimes, but it's not a very tight joint, so usually it's pretty easy to grab them. And then just close the forearm back up. Do that on both sides. Then last but not least, we want to take the shoulder pads here and kind of collapse them down, and then you can bring these panels back down to hide his real shoulders, which are in there. And then for the back panel here, he's got this little panel back here that you want to get a fingernail on and fold down like that, and then bring the whole section and fold it up like that so that it kind of fills in this back section here and gives them little jet boosters, which is cool. And there you have G2 Laser Prime in his robot mode. And yeah, he looks pretty good for the most part. People have kind of complained about the proportions of this figure, saying that like he's got a lot of leg, and I don't disagree, but like when you compare him to like Earthrise Prime, for example, you can see the leg sections are exactly the same. And you know, I've heard complaints that Earthrise Prime is a little leggy as well, but I think what really makes him look like less proportionate than he does is just the fact that like with Earthrise Prime, this is a clear sort of delineation of like he's got, you know, like a waist piece right here, and then his legs start here because he's got the yellow detailing, the blue piece there. Whereas since this is all just kind of the same color, when you're not really like focusing on it, it kind of looks like the leg goes all the way up to here, and then it doesn't help that these parts of his abdomen are also that same color, so it does kind of make it look like just his torso is just this little squashed bit, even though it's the same height as Earthrise Prime pretty much, and the legs are certainly the same proportional amount of the robot mode, so it's really just more the same, but I guess just because of the red here, it's an easier cutoff point, whereas it does kind of look like he's all scrunched up. But if you imagine not this as his torso, but this as his torso, it does proportionally work a lot better. But yeah, either way, I mean, you know, the complaint is still there, but I think he still looks pretty good overall. In terms of articulation, the head is on a ball joint, I think. It's really tight, so you don't really get a ton of like wiggle back and forth. It mostly just acts as a swivel, which is a little unfortunate because like it has this like very, very slight degree of just like looking up ever so slightly. It's not really shown off on camera very well. So it always just looks like his eye line is just a little bit higher up than eye level, which, if you bend him over a little bit, it mostly works. But I do wish that the head had a bit more range so you could actually adjust the tilt up and down, but that's not a big deal. The shoulders are kind of the big disappointing joint on this guy because these blocks are solid in place. I mean, they can move, if you move these out, they can move out to the side like that. But if you like rotate his arm forward, you have to like move this panel out of the way and rotate it forward on this joint in here. So he's actually like, you know, these are just big shoulder pads. They're not actually connected to his arms, which I think is kind of a bummer, just because like it makes his arms look a little bit short when they're like out to the side like that, or out to the side like this. Like it's pretty much just his entire bicep just gets completely shrunk into the shoulder. Whereas like, yeah, I get you'd still want the joint to do that so that these don't go in and have to go in and like bash Prime in the head or whatever. But I feel like for the forward joint, it would have been helpful if this whole thing could rotate, because like as he is now, he can't really get his arms like up. They can pretty much just go to the T pose. I guess if you like move this out of the way and rotate the joint around, then he can do that, but that doesn't look particularly natural. And then like when you actually look at the shoulder joints themselves, one, they look kind of like small and weedy, but two, they're also not really at his shoulder line. Like they're more like midway down the chest, which looks a little weird. And usually this just covers it up, so it doesn't matter. But just when you move the figure around, you can always get the sense that his arms are always a little bit pinched into the side because they're not starting from exactly the right point to make it look proportionally accurate. So I'm not in love with how they decided to do the arms. It's not a huge deal, but it's definitely, I don't know, not the best that it could have been. But yeah, no, the arms can move out to the side. If you move this panel, they can move forward. He's got a bicep swivel in here, though obviously it has that offset. So if you rotate it all the way around, it does kind of disjoint itself. 90 degrees of bend at the elbow. His wrists are on ball joints, so they have swivels there. He's got, again, pretty much the same articulation as Earthrise Prime in the legs. So he's got a nice waist cut there. His hip can go forward, back, out to the side. He's got a thigh swivel, a little over 90 degrees of bend at the knee, ankle tilt, and then the toes and the heels can both fold in but not up. So, it could be useful for some poses if you're adjusting the heel, but not crazy foot articulation, just kind of the standard stuff. But so, decent, but like really the whole thing with the arms, like unless you just have them like sitting kind of just like in a candid pose, they can start to look a little bit weird once you start actually maneuvering them around in different positions, but whatever. Now, in terms of his weapons, obviously you can bring on his whole trailer platform here, and he looks cool with that. If he stands behind, he can kind of, put his arms up here and use this as like a turret. He also can, if you want, take this section off. It just untabs, so he can hold that as a handheld gun or peg that into like any of his like different weaponizer ports. There's a port there, isn't there? Yeah. Just kind of tight, but yeah, you could do something like that. This whole section, for whatever reason, comes off. It's not really that useful for him in particular, but I could see this being a good feature to have if you're like combining a bunch of the base stuff and you want this somewhere else. It's kind of nice that it comes off. It's just a normal 5mm peg, but in terms of the actual features of this toy itself, they don't really advertise you having to do anything with that. It just does come off. And then obviously he can have his weapons here. The sword has sort of an inexplicable little tab on it here, which gets in the way when you're plugging it into his hands. It doesn't actually tab into anything. Maybe it's for like some combined weapon mode with other figures, since like Legacy is doing the full like combining Energon weapon thing, but it's fine. He can hold it fine. You just have to make sure that the tab is on the side that goes in between his fingers and his thumb. And then once that's in, you can rotate it around whichever way you want. And if you do rotate it around, it really does lock it in there. But he looks good holding the sword. And then obviously the axe, you can just unfold the handle. And it's pretty tight connection, honestly, with the axe. Like it feels like it's maybe just a little bit too thick, and I kind of worry about it breaking the fingers, but so far I haven't seen any signs of stress or anything. But yeah, he's got his cool axe and his sword there. And then if you want, you can actually take the sword itself, and there's this slot on the axe here, and you can plug the sword into it and give him kind of like a big sort of powered up sword, and then the axe kind of becomes like a big hilt, and I think that looks pretty cool. It's sort of a weird weapon, but I don't know. I think that works. It's kind of interesting. And then in terms of other weapon stuff, he does have... let me just get this Jesus out of his hand. He does have these shoulder launcher things here, where if you fold up these panels, which aren't transformation joints at all, so this is just for this feature here, he does have sculpted in translucent blue missile racks there, which don't come out or anything. It's just for show, but that's kind of cool. And then he does also have, if you open up his chest here, he does have the Matrix of Leadership, which is not the same one as the ones that we've seen. It's kind of, there we go, kind of tricky to get out sometimes. But if we take out Earthrise Prime's matrix, for example, you can see it's a little bit taller and a little bit thinner. Like it has to be a bit thinner to fit in the chest section there, so it's not like as much of like a full complete matrix as other ones, but it is a little bit wider. So I don't know, to each his own. I think they both look good, but they're pretty similar. But then you can obviously store that in there, and you can see it through the front windows there, which is pretty cool. Well, front windows, I should say. Yes, he does do this. I don't know if you can call it cheating because it's not like this chest section is implied to be the actual grill or the window section of the truck. It's really just like he has his old chest plate from when he turned into a flatbed, but doesn't turn into a flatbed anymore, but still has that detailing. It's strange. I mean, it's obviously been that way with every iteration of G2 Optimus Prime, and it's something that kind of turned me off for a while. But like, I don't know how I feel about it because it's not cheating because like you can see his windows, they're just right there. Like it's not pretending to somehow magically change shape from a long nose truck to a flatbed truck or a flat nose truck, but it's just a weird that he has that. It's sort of the same kind of energy except a little bit better as like, you know, when they're Cybertronian modes, like how Bumblebee, the Origins Bumblebee has like Volkswagen Beetle feet, even though he doesn't turn into a Beetle. It's that kind of energy. But at least with this, you can say like, oh, if Optimus Prime once turned into a flat nose truck and then upgraded his form to this form and just like kept the detailing, like you could kind of say that. I don't know. It's weird, but it's not the end of the world. It's just kind of like it's always been sort of a weird aesthetic with G2 Prime to like have the flat nose chest, where it's, even though he turns into a long nose truck, very strange, but still. In terms of weapon storage with his weapons, unfortunately, the only real place you can store them is in the trailer. I mean, unless you like fold the handle down and like peg it onto his shoulder or something, or like plug it in like that. Like he doesn't have any extra ports on, or any extra like 5mm pegs on him to like peg it onto his back like that. And as far as I can see, there's no places to like tab it onto either his back or his shoulders. So you can't actually just like store the weapons on his robot mode without the trailer. They have to store in the trailer, which is kind of a bummer. It's not the end of the world because he does have the trailer to store them, but you know, if you just wanted him going off by himself with his weapons, they store in truck mode, but then they don't store in robot mode, and that kind of sucks. But other stuff to talk about, he does have these peg holes on the back of his forearms, which, because of the way his arms are constructed, you can kind of see through his forearms sometimes in certain angles, which I don't love the look of. I mean, I get it wouldn't be that hard if you were willing to like, you know, just lose the functionality of these peg holes here. You could just like 3D print a part to fill in, and it, you know, it would look fine from the front. But you know, not a big deal, but worth mentioning. In terms of comparisons, obviously we already showed him off here with Earthrise Prime, but just so we can see some of the shared parts here, the actual waist section itself, like the cod piece, is not the same part, but the upper hip sections are, the thighs are, the lower legs. Mostly it's new parts. It still has some of the like, I don't know, evidence of being like you know, from this part originally, but it is definitely reshelled, so it's got different detailing on it. Like I said before, the wheels didn't really have to be different parts, but they are. Both the front and the back wheels are completely new parts, so that's cool, I guess. And then the feet are entirely the same. So, you know, it's really just from the waist down. He doesn't even really share much of a transformation with him, so it's, for the most part, pretty new, just like keeping some of that, like, essence of the original Earthrise Prime, but yeah, that's what they look like together. Then for the standard one, here he is with Kingdom Sideswipe. Let me just adjust it a little bit so we're not cutting off his shoulder pads there. Yeah, there he is with Kingdom Sideswipe for a standard size deluxe, and then just because we showed him off before, here he is with Hubcap. I don't know why Hubcap is the one that I grabbed. It was just the closest one of that mold, but yeah, you know, pretty standard size. He's pretty much eye to eye with Earthrise Prime. So if you have that figure, you know what you're getting into. But yeah, you know, he's a pretty good figure overall. The one big thing that I have against him is really just the way that the shoulders work. But otherwise, you know, he's a fun figure to transform. He's got good weapons, which do at least have some form of storage in both modes. If you're, you know, counting pegging them on here as storage, which it should be, because like if he's bringing along this whole weaponized platform with him, then he can keep his extra weapons there. And the trailer, it's always been kind of a weird design, but at least it does have like a bit of like a turret section here. Oh, we can show off the trailer with here he is with Prime's trailer. Well, Earthrise Prime's trailer. They're both Prime with some weapons pegged into it. So you can see the difference there. Definitely makes Earthrise Prime's trailer look a lot bigger just because it's more spread out, but they're really about the same size. But it's a fun trailer section. I love the little claw arm thing. It's nice that he has that. It's not, it's got a lot of like pegs and stuff in it, so you can plug other things into it, even though it's not like overly involved in and of itself. But it's definitely, I think, more capable of making like wacky weaponized combinations than Earthrise Prime's trailer was. But it's still cool either way. You've got a little rotating turret and this whole thing. I think it's kind of fun. And the figure himself, like, again, aside from the shoulder thing, I think he's pretty cool. I love the detail of the jetpacks back there. I think he looks good in both robot and truck mode, and the transformation is fairly intuitive and fun. But yeah, that's pretty much all there is to say about him. Oh, also, I didn't mention in vehicle mode, they can use each other's trailers. Doesn't line up quite perfectly, but they do fit both on there, obviously, since it's the same leg section, uses the same trailer hitch. But yeah, otherwise, that's pretty much all there is to them. If you enjoy my videos, make sure to leave a like and consider subscribing. I do reviews every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday. And without further ado, here we have Transformers Generations Legacy Leader Class Laser Optimus Prime.